my name's Martin. Today's lesson is about how to play drafts, or checkers as they call it in America. The aims of today, I'm going to try and explain how to play the game of drafts and also give you a brief introduction to strategy. By the end of the lesson, hopefully you'll understand how to play and be able to play against either another human player or against a computer online. Some basic information before we start. For health and safety, please be aware there's a number of trailing leads in the room. I've had to arrange the projector fairly back so we can see the image on the screen. So obviously we don't want you falling over or potentially tripping and hurting yourself. Also, there's a smoke detector up here. I'm not cooking at the moment, so it shouldn't go off. But if it does go off, if you go to the rear of the room over there and turn right, that will send you to the exit and you'll be able to go outside to safety, just while it's investigated. For your comfort, if you need the toilet at all, hopefully you won't, but if you need the toilet, there is a bathroom again down the bottom of the room and through into another room there. You can see the door open. And the resources we're going to use today, first of all, I've created a handout for you, about 20 something pages, and in the handout is basically a copy of every page that we'll see displayed on the wall here. There's a drafts board here. That's more of a physical example rather than we're not actually going to use it today because there's quite a few examples I need to show you and it would take too long to actually set that up on the board itself. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to project the images onto the screen and then you should be able to see what we're doing up there. And then finally, are you expecting phone calls today or anything?
No.
No, right. Well, if you could just turn your phone off, or at least put it on silent, and then we can proceed with the lesson if that's okay.
Yeah.
Right, so the rules. First of all, have you played drafts before, or have you seen other people play drafts?
I've not played drafts before, but I have played chess.
You played chess, right. Well, it's the same board as well, you probably recognise the chessboard. The only difference, well, the main difference between chess and draft, apart from the pieces or the moves, is that on drafts we only use the black squares. We don't use the white squares at all. When we set it up, each player has 12 pieces and they're placed on the first 3 rows of nearest to each player, as you can see on the screen. So red's got their pieces there, black's got their pieces there. Black, unlike chess where white moves first, black moves first in drafts. And the objective is to take all your opponent's pieces. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Right. Movement. Movement in drafts is a bit like chess. In chess, your pawns can move one piece forward at a time. Drafts is exactly the same. You can only move one piece. And also, it's identical in the fact that one player moves, then the other player moves, and vice versa. And you can't actually miss a turn. You have to take your turn when it's your turn to play. Now, also similar to chess, you can only move into an empty square. So when you start the game, the only pieces that black can actually move to begin with are the front row, because the ones at the back are blocked in and they can't move to an empty black square or dark square. So in this situation, I could take this black piece and move it to that square or that square. And I can do the same with others. Obviously, this piece at the end here, there's no black square to the right of it, so that can only move diagonally to the left.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to ask you to solve an example or a puzzle later in the lesson. So I'm just going to briefly mention coordinates. Have you played battleships at all?
No.
No, right. Well, this is similar to battleships in the fact that when you want to identify a square, along the bottom and the top of the board are letters, and down the sides there are numbers. So to indicate a particular square, you take the letter first, then the number, and that will give you the name of that square. So for example, this red piece here is in position C3, and can you tell me what position that black piece is in?
F6.
That's it, that's correct, thank you. Right, well the objective of the game is obviously to take all your opponent's pieces, but how would you actually do that? Well, drafts is similar to leapfrog. You jump over your opponent's piece. You don't. It's not like chess where you land on a square, you actually jump over the square. So in this situation, the red counter here can jump over the black counter because there's an empty space behind it. So when that would happen, the counter, it's the only situation where you can move twice when you take a piece. So the red counter would move over the black counter, and the black counter would be removed from the board. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes you can actually jump over multiple pieces. If there is a sequence of empty spaces behind opposing counters, you can jump more than once. So this black piece here can jump to this square and take that red counter, and then it can jump to the next square and actually take two counters in one go. And if there was another space it could potentially jump to, it could carry on. The only reason it can't carry on is obviously because these pieces here are protected by the ones behind it. Now, taking is compulsory.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take a piece. If the opportunity arises, you have to take a piece in drafts. So whether it's one move or a sequence of steps or jumps, then for example, in this situation where you can take two pieces, you can't actually stop after taking one piece.
Okay.
You have to take both. And if, for example, you didn't spot that, or you decided, actually, I don't want to take that, and move a different counter instead, what would actually happen is that because you haven't taken that opportunity to take the opponent's piece, you will forfeit that piece. You pay a penalty for breaking the rules.
Mm.
So if you didn't take when you're supposed to, that piece would be removed from the game, and your opponent would gain a piece for nothing, really.
Okay.
So you need to look, each time it's your turn to play, you need to look to see if you have an opportunity to take, but also whether it's advantageous, because I'll explain that later in the game, in the lesson as well. The other possibility you might face is where one piece, an opponent's piece, could actually be taken by two of your pieces. Again, you have to take it, but in this case you can choose which piece you want to take with. So for example, if I chose the piece on the right hand side and jumped once, I would remove this piece from the board, and that would be viewed as taking a compulsory move. That's acceptable. Alternatively, I can actually use this piece but jump twice and take two blacks. So if you're given the option, first of all you have to take one of the options, but you don't have to take the multiple option if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But if it's advantageous, obviously the faster you remove the opponent's pieces, the better. Now, just as in chess, when you get a pawn onto your opponent's back row, when you move one of your pieces onto the back row in drafts, you're also rewarded.
Yeah.
In chess, you'll get a queen, or you can choose any piece. In drafts, you become crowned and you get a king. And when you get a king, obviously you need to identify it as a king. So in a computer version, it's displayed with a crown on the piece. But on a physical version, obviously you can't draw on your pieces.
Yeah.
So what you do is you actually put a second piece on top of the first piece, which will represent the king itself.
Yeah.
It's like a layer, it's two layers on a cake. So that represents a king. But what is the advantage of a king? Well, the advantage of a king is that it can move and jump not just forwards like a regular piece, but it can also move backwards as well. So if we look at the king that I've put in the centre of the board here, you can see that that king can actually move to 4 different squares. So unlike a regular piece, which can move one or, as a choice, should I say, of 1 or 2 squares, a king can choose all the squares diagonally in front of it and behind.
Yeah.
And that also means that a king can jump both forwards and backwards as well. So in the example I've shown here, the king can jump 1 square forward over that piece, then jump backwards over this piece, and then jump backwards again over this piece, allowing it to actually take 3 pieces, and that's why the king's so powerful. It can move in every direction. Now, obviously, the objective of the game is to win, but you can have 2 scenarios where you can declare a draw. In chess, you can have a stalemate, where you can't move the king without putting it to danger. In drafts, the first way of drawing is if you can't actually move one of your pieces. Now, in this scenario, the red piece has blocked in the black piece. The black piece, because it's not being crowned, can only move forwards, it can't move backwards, and so it hasn't actually got a square it can physically move into.
Yeah.
So because it can't move, just like in chess, it's declared a draw. The other situation where a draw could occur is where one player has 1 piece left and they have to evade the other player for a total of 40 moves, which is 20 moves each. Obviously, by having 1 piece left, they have no chance of being able to take the other player's pieces, not unless they make a deliberate mistake.
Yeah.
So you run around the board trying to evade being taken. And when that happens is, the red player here, which is 1 piece, when he moves his piece, he'll say 1. The black player will say 2. The red player will say 3. The black player will say 4. And if they get to the number 40, then it's a draw. Obviously, black wants to stop it getting to 40, red's trying to get to 40. So it's quite a simplistic game in terms of movement, in terms of taking, and in terms of rules, in fact, compulsory taking. So, did that all make sense? Have you got any questions at all?
No, I don't have any questions.
Right, so what I'm going to do then, I'm going to give you a little mini quiz just to confirm that, because I need to do it. So, how do pieces move?
Diagonally forwards.
On
the blacks.
On the black squares, right. How do you crown a piece and create a king?
If the piece gets to the other side of the board, like end, and then you have to put the other draft on top of it. That's it.
That's right. Well, on a computer screen, it's got a little symbol inside to differentiate it. Do you always have to take an opponent's piece?
Well, yes, and if you don't, there's a forfeit. But if you don't take it, you then forfeit your piece, and that's to go off the board.
Right, so you lose your piece if you don't take it. Yeah. What's the advantage of a king?
That it can move anywhere.
It can move anywhere.
Yeah, well, forwards and backwards diagonal.
Right, that's great. Right, so obviously we've got the basic rules. You seem to understand that very well. So I'm just going to take a very quick look into strategy and give you a couple of examples. Now, one of the things you're trying to do is not only force the opponent into doing what you want, but you're trying to protect your own pieces. Now, at the moment on this situation, the red piece here is only 2 moves from becoming crowned, but it can't actually move into this square because the black piece will take it. So we need to get a piece into this square here to stop that being empty and prevent that being taken. So in this situation, a way you can get around that is the red player will move his piece there, the black player will have to take it because it's compulsory, but then the red player can take that piece, and then that creates a protected path then to move this piece through to get it crowned.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, that
You
makes sense.
can move things to actually protect your own
Yeah.
pieces. And a second example, I say we're short of time, so I'm just going through things quickly. Again, the red player's moved here, which means that it's compulsory for black to move to this square here. But what happens if black moves there? It creates a chain for red to jump over all of his remaining pieces, in which you'll lose.
Mm-hmm.
So in this scenario, it would actually make sense for black to pay a penalty
And
and forfeit his piece rather than lose a game.
Yeah.
Because in losing one piece is far better than losing three and a game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to give you a puzzle to solve, if that's okay. So where on this game would red move a piece to create a similar situation?
Move it to C3.
So move which piece, sorry?
D2
Yeah,
to C3.
that's right. Because if black then takes that, then the piece on C1 can then jump over all the remaining pieces.
Yeah.
So black will then have a choice. Well, if he doesn't see it, or she doesn't see it, does it take it, or does it forfeit?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that seems to be relatively straightforward. So, I say it's just a brief introduction today. Explain the rules, explain how to set the board up, how one player can win, or the conditions for a draw, how the pieces move and can be taken, how pieces can be crowned, and the importance of thinking ahead and how to control play. I've also created there's some resources there if you're interested, if you want to learn more about the game. There's some books there, some good starter books to read, a couple of online sites you can use, and there's also the website of the English Draft Association. So to conclude, I'd just like to thank you for coming. Hopefully it's been useful. Do you have any additional questions at all? Have I explained that thoroughly?
Yes, you have.
You have.
Yeah, I've got no additional questions.
That's great, thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
And sorry, I should have asked earlier. I know you've got dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
Did you manage to read everything okay? Everything was clear.
Yeah, everything was clear.
That's great. Thank you.